And uh, so tonight I'm introducing Miss Susan Lee, and she will be, give the speech tonight. And she's done such an outstanding job in Virginia as head of the Virginia Flaggers. It's just amazing what one young lady like this has been able to accomplish in Virginia. She hadn't told me this, but I think Stonewall Jackson and General Nathan Bedford Forrest were two of the strongest fighters and most unique people in the war. And the way this young lady fights and carries on heading up the Virginia Flaggers, I think she must be kin to both of them. So at this time, I'll ask Miss Susan Lee to take charge and give us a talk tonight about what she's doing and what we need to do and so forth. So a big hand for Miss Susan Lee for what she has done, and she'll explain that to us tonight, and we'll probably give her a standing ovation when she finishes.
So good to be here back in this part of town, part of Georgia that is. Really enjoyed the trip down. I had a good time today too, seeing a few of the sights around. I got to see your Confederate Memorial Park. Can't wait to tell people about that because I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes, but that is what I believe our future is. Private land, get our memorials, get them out of the hands of these folks that don't want them, get our own monument, put our own parks up like y'all have done. It's great. I just want to bring you greetings from Virginia, from the capital of the Confederacy. In fact, believe it or not, from what you hear on the news, we are still the capital of the Confederacy. And I'm going to start you off with a little song just to bring you a taste of Virginia here to Georgia tonight. It goes something like this. Carry me back to old Virginia. There's where the cotton and the corn and taters grow. There's where the birds warble sweet in the springtime. There's where this old darkey's heart and long to go. There's where I labored so hard for old massa, day after day in the field of yellow corn. No place on earth do I love more sincerely than old Virginia, the state where I was born. Standing before you today in Georgia to talk about our Southern heritage. And for me, one of the first things that woke me up was when they stole our state song from us. That was our state song for years and years. And it's been a while now, but in the middle of the night of the legislature, they stole that song. And that kind of got me upset. And just to tell you a little bit, because I know we don't have much time tonight, how I got to be where I am today, one of the first things people ask me is, what in the world happened to bring you from being just an average Sunday school teacher, mom, soccer mom, Cub Scout mom, to being someone who travels all over the country to talk about this and kind of likes to drive some bad guys really crazy that are trying to get us? How did that happen? And for me, it started with things like them stealing our state song. Let me tell you just a little bit about myself. By the way, for my official affiliations, to give my groups a shout out, I am also a member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, chapter number 1705, Richmond Stonewall Chapter in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a member of the Sally Tompkins, chapter number 2 of the Order of Confederate Rose. And I'm associate member of the Edmund Ruffin Fire Eaters, camp number 3000 of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. That's where I live still today. And I grew up in the shadows of the 7 Days battlefield. My daddy was a relic hunter. He was a history buff. He was the kind of man who wrote our church's history. He wrote the history of our town, and he raised me to appreciate my heritage. We would go, and you might go to exotic places for vacation, like a beach on Florida. Well, we went to Gettysburg. We went to battlefields. Some of y'all probably know what I'm talking about, being raised like I was. And, when some of y'all went to restaurants after church, we went to graveyards, cemeteries. Even as a child, that's what I remember. So I had a healthy respect for my heritage. But it wasn't until I was much, much older and my kids were grown that I looked around and saw what was happening, without going into a lot of detail. Because folks, in the 8 years, and I know for some of y'all, you're probably like, she's just a baby. We've been doing this for so long, and believe me, I know how long many of y'all have been fighting. But for me, the Virginia Flaggers have been around 8 years now. And it really started with a few things that happened in Virginia By the way, this is one of the most important to me. It's a little Confederate chapel there in the middle of Richmond, Virginia. And some folks made the SCV at the time take those battle flags off that portico. I'm not going to go into details, but that was one of the things that got me really upset, that really hurt me. And I like to show people some of the pictures from that home. It was an old soldier's home. And the men there had built that chapel to worship in. It was one of the first things they did. They wanted a place to worship, and they wanted a place where one by one, as their brothers passed away, where they had their services before they were taken to be buried. Some of the pictures from the home I think are kind of cool. And to me, this was, when we look back at what has happened since then, it might seem minor because we are dealing with so many major things we're fighting today. But at that time, and it still is near and dear to me in my heart, is this chapel and them forcing those flags off of it. And there were some other things happening. The sesquicentennial in Virginia was an absolute, I can't even talk about it without getting upset. It was just a joke. It was all about slavery. They didn't want anything Confederate. We fought that the whole time. And then finally, for me, and I'm really fast forwarding through a lot of this, but the straw that broke the camel's back for me was Lexington, Virginia. And in case some of you all don't know, that Lexington, Virginia, and unfortunately I'm here sad to say that this last week, our legislature, which I could talk about this for hours, have actually ended our official state holiday of Lee Jackson Day. So this one we just had was the last official until we can take our legislature back and get all this turned back around. But up until then, every Lee Jackson Day, the SCV in Lexington had flown these flags from the city flag stands. City light stands. And you'll notice there's a Robert E. Lee flag, the unreconstructed Virginia, the stainless for Jackson, and then beyond that is a First National. And one professor of Russian literature from Washington and Lee complained about that display. And this was really the first thing I got active in. Some of you who know me now, maybe as the Facebook Confederate lady or whatever you might know me as, might be surprised to know that I had to go buy a flag. This was 2011. I had to go to what used to be the Museum of the Confederacy, buy a flag, and I went up to Lexington, and I went to an SCV rally, and I marched down the streets of Lexington into the city council, and I poured my heart out to these councilmen. How dare you? How dare you, who owe the very existence of this town of Lexington to Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee, how dare you deny any flag be flown so that those flags don't fly? And I watched as one by one, they voted to ban all flags, except for a U.S. flag, state flag, and non-existent city flag, rather than let these flags fly for 2 days. And I went home that day, and our friends played, the first song they played that day was The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, and that's what I felt like when I drove home that night. Now, since then, we've all had so many nights like this, you wonder when it's really going to get. But for me, that was it. And I didn't know what to do. At the time, I didn't know anybody in the SCV, nobody in the UDC. I'll tell you a quick story about my only UDC experience. I went to college in Richmond, and I remember going up to the headquarters there, and there are these big brass doors. And I remember walking up to the doors and going, bong, 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 because I thought I wanted to join and do something for my heritage. And nobody came to the door. That was the end of my attempt to join the UDC. Fast forward, and I didn't know what to do. Have you ever felt like that? Things are going on around you, and you want to stop it, but you don't know what to do. And I remember hearing about these Georgia flaggers. And some of you all may be here with me tonight, I don't know. But you may remember, of course, when they stole your flag right out from under your eyes in the middle of the night, a lot of guys walked around with flags and really irritated the fire out of the politicians, and it worked. Yet you lost your flag, but also here the next election you completely flipped your legislature over, and all those guys went out on their kazoo, from what I hear. And I didn't know what else to do. So I went, that flag I had just bought, and I started standing out in front of that little chapel where they had taken the flags down. And this is how the Virginia flaggers were born. I just didn't know what else to do. I went out and started standing, and people just started coming and standing with me. And again, I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time. I like to show this picture. My daughter went with me the first time. And if you look at that picture, I didn't know it at the time, but it really is a pretty good indicator of how I felt that night, that day. I mean, I'm like putting marks in the pole, and my forehead is all stressed. I was nervous. I'm telling you, I was scared. But from that, the Virginia flaggers were born. And people just started coming and standing with me. And I don't know, the only thing I can really tell you standing here today, 8 years later, and 30 interstate flags. We just put our 30th flag up last week on the interstate in Virginia. And all I can tell you is that from the very beginning, I just asked God to take me and use me however he could to serve his will in this fight for our heritage. And I am going to tell you from the very get-go. Oh, I forgot to give my disclaimer. I got to tell you right now, because there may be some among you here. If you are a Yankee, or if you are a liberal, you probably will be offended by my speech. So I'm telling you now, so that you can go ahead and quietly make your way out, because I really would just hate to offend anybody in any way, shape, or form. So let me tell you something about when I started in this fight. I was very naive. I was raised, like a lot of you all, with good Christian people. These are not the fake Christians you hear about. These aren't the people that you hear maybe just say one thing and do. I lived and grew up with the people that walk the walk and talk the talk. I thought when I went into this, I could put my faith here, my politics here, and my heritage fight here. Keep them all separate, compartmentalized, and everything would be fine. Guess what? I was completely wrong. There is no way you can separate our fight for our faith, our fight for our conservative politics, and our fight for our heritage, because they are one in the same. They're absolutely interconnected. And I also can tell you that I can say a lot of this because I do not have a 501c3, so I can tell you a lot of things that maybe you can't say at other times. But it absolutely is true. The exact same people that hate us because of our conservative Christian faith hate us because of our conservative politics and hate us because of our Confederate heritage. And why is that? Because our Confederate heritage is the example of the two things that they hate the most. It is a godly heritage, and it has been founded on conservative principles since the day we seceded. And that's why they hate us, folks. And these ungodly people who want to get rid of us, the very easiest and first thing they did was what? What's the first thing they came after? The battle flag. And we could talk all night about what now, it went from battle flag to hoop skirts at Georgia, right? But from the very beginning, it was the battle flag because that was the low-hanging fruit. That was the first thing they could make us because, hello, and I'm looking at myself too. I'm looking at myself a few years back. I bought into it too. Maybe if we just put the battle flag away, everybody will like us, right? Maybe if we just hide that, maybe we'll just fly the first national and everybody will like us, right? Nope, it didn't work. It didn't work. And I'm not going to get too carried away with that right now. But I want to tell you folks that I honestly believe this. And I don't know that there was an actual meeting, because I don't know if anybody was sitting in a room. But things really heated up with our good friend Nikki Haley, and they were getting kind of already, the ball was rolling. But when things really got nasty, and some of y'all might agree with me if you've been in this for a while. To me, things really got nasty the day after the election that Donald Trump was elected president. Yeah. I honestly believe that. Y'all remember them crazy, I'm going to try to use nice names because my mother could possibly watch this later, those snowflakes, we call them snowflakes. Remember them crying the night of the election and the tears and the gnashing and the weeping? And I really believe this, that in the next few weeks to follow, these people sat around and saying, what on earth happened here? How did this happen that this man got elected president? And they said, you know what? You know what really did it? It's those Bible-toting, gun-toting, Confederate Southerners who put this man over the top. Now, what can we, absolutely. And they said, what can we do to hurt these people the most? What can we do to hurt them the most? And I talk a lot about the difference between us and them, because it is huge. There is no longer a moderate difference. In Virginia, we just lost our House of Delegates and our Senate. And we only needed one senator. We only needed one senator to vote with us on issues about life, on issues about guns, on issues about our heritage. And I really went into this kind of Pollyanna, like, there's bound to be one moderate, decent, fair-thinking, fair-minded Democrat in Virginia. Guess what? I was wrong. There wasn't even one. Look at our votes that just happened. Every single one was right down party line. Whether it was our monuments, our babies, for goodness sakes. Oh, it's hard to talk about. Or our guns. It was right down party lines. Again, I digress to say that they wanted to know the difference between us and them. One of the big differences between us and them I just mentioned. We grow up, and some of you all have shared with me tonight, and I love to hear it. We grow up knowing who not only our grandparents are, our great-grandparents, our great-great. We know when they came over. We know where they're buried. We go tend their graves. And we are proud of our heritage. And they said, how can we hurt these people the most? I know. Let's go after their monuments. Let's go after the things that mean the most to them. Let's go take that monument down, and not only go take it down, we're going to tear it down and have a party and stomp on it. The monument that, and I talked about this in your Oakview Cemetery today on a little video I did, because I was touched thinking about the mothers and the daughters and the wives who never knew where their sons or their husband or their grandson was, that they never came home. You don't realize how many thousands of mothers never had any clue where they died, where they were buried. And so they built in the middle of town a monument, and they went every Mother's Day, every son's birthday, every Memorial Day, and that was that boy's grave. So how can they get us? How can they hurt us for doing what we did and putting him into office? Go after our monuments. And folks, I believe that. So the war we are fighting today is not just about our Confederate heritage. A lot of y'all are like me and probably frustrated. Why can't we get other people to join in? Well, we all know the reason, right? For the most part, it's because the left, the liberals, the commies, whatever you want to call them, I'll let you pick your name, they have been very good at convincing us. And I may not mean the people in this room, because you all are here, thank you, I appreciate it. You got up and came to a meeting where there's a flag on the wall. You're different than the public already, right? You're a little brave. But for most people, all it takes is that one R word to be called a racist, to be called anything in that line, and then you shut up and it's all over with, right? And that's why they've gotten where they're. And you will see the same thing now with a Donald Trump hat, or anything about abortion in this case. Whatever we're fighting in conservative, that's what they're going to use. And the question is, how are we going to get other people, what I was trying to get to join us? Somebody was talking tonight about a Second Amendment sanctuary meeting here. You know we've had them all in Virginia. My biggest question is, now how do we get those people to join us in our fight and to convince them that it's all the same fight? Yeah. And I'm just going to get back to here. This is how we just started standing out there. People started coming, and we do what's called flagging. By the way, we're still doing this. It's 8 years later. We're still twice a week out there protesting these folks that took down these flags. And from that, we just continue to grow. I'm going to really shoot through this fast. I usually stop here and talk about the battle flag. That's kind of something really important to me and near and dear to my heart. And the question is, why do I carry the battle flag? The very start of all this, when we go to events in Virginia, we carry our flag, whether it's a memorial service, anything like that. That's why we're called flaggers, I guess. And I was carrying my flag, and a gentleman came up to me, and he said, Susan, I love what you're doing. Please keep up the good work. But let me tell you, I think you do a lot better, and you'd be a lot better off if you put that battle flag down and carry the First National instead. He said it'd be a lot safer, and you get a lot more done. He may have been the first one to tell me that, but he definitely was not the last. I remember in 2012, I marched with the SCV at Richmond. You remember every year y'all used to have those sesquicentennial events, and you would go to a certain city. And one year was Richmond, and everybody came there, we marched. And I came back and stood in front of my organization there in Richmond, and the director of that organization dressed me down for being unladylike for carrying a battle flag through the streets of Richmond. And I was dressed like this, by the way. I decided kind of early on when I did this, I wanted to put my best forward so that I'm representing Christ and my ancestor the best way I possibly could. And that was to sort of try to go Sunday, go to meeting whenever I do anything like this. And that's just my personal decision. But from that, I just have to tell you, I carry the battle flag for one reason only, well, the main reason. Because all four of my great-great-grandfathers who fought for the Confederacy fought for and from Virginia. And they carried the A and B, the white border around it. And to me, I want everyone to know that everything I do is about the Confederate soldier. One of the themes the Virginia flaggers like to say over and over again is, it's not about us. It's not about us. If you are in this fight because you think it's going to be for the glory or the publicity or you're going to get rich, you're in the wrong fight. The only reason we do what we do is for the Confederate soldier, and that he will always be remembered. And folks, that battle flag is the reason it does it. One of the things that we hear all the time, especially when I started putting up battle flags on the interstate, was, you should fly the First National because no one knows what it is. Have y'all ever heard that? Just think about that. They want me to fly a flag for my ancestor that no one knows what it is. Well, folks, I believe if there is any time in this country, in the South, in America, that we need to stand up and fight back loudly and proudly, it's right now. Whether it's the battle flag, whether it's our conservative faith, whether it's our conservative politics, there is no more room for sitting back and expecting things to just get better on their own. And that battle flag, to me, tells everybody that sees it, that person, that family, that home, that organization is not afraid to stand for what they believe in. And folks, I believe that's where we ought to be now. We do a lot of fun things. One of them is banner planes. That's kind of fun. You really can't go wrong with a good banner plane. And I'd stop and tell a little story here. I forgot to mention, by the way, I'm an English major. That's what I went to college for. I work at an architecture firm in Richmond now, but I went to school to be an English teacher, and I had one of those dads many of you had that we might affectionately call a grammar Nazi, who kind of drilled it into my head, and I would get corrected all the time. Fast forward, there was a race in Virginia, a big bike race in Richmond. They cleaned up the streets, they filled potholes. It was pretty good for a good while there. And all these thousands of people were coming. Every hotel was sold out. The big bike race was about to happen. And a few of these folks complained that they were going to have to drive down Monument Avenue and drive by the Jefferson Davis Monument. Holy cow, they were protesting. And to their credit, the governor and the mayor said, no, we're going to keep the bike race the same. But these snowflakes, and we call them snowflakes, this is what we call our main enemy. And I get in trouble sometimes for saying enemy, and people say, no, that's people across the ocean who are fighting. No, we have enemies right in our own backyard. And our enemies, for the most part, at least where I am, are not folks of color, by the way. Our enemies are white liberals, most of them young white liberals who want to talk for people of color who really don't care about our flags in most cases. And these snowflakes, what we affectionately term them, they decided they were going to have a protest. And this was in the middle of Black Lives Matter. And so they were standing out in front of the Jefferson Davis Monument, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, as the race was about to begin. Well, I have learned long ago that I am not going to fight with these people. For one thing, do any of y'all have the idea of the moral fiber, if that's a word, for these people, for most of them? If they ever come after you on social media and you just go look at their page, there's no question. They live a lifestyle you don't even want to be near. Y'all hear me? You know what I'm saying. So I don't want to be in the street with these people. Please, I don't even want to be near them. So what we decided was we would get a banner plane. So think for a minute. Opening day of the bike races. Richmond is lined with people, 50,000 people, I think they said, on the streets ready for the bike race. They're down by the Jefferson Davis Monument, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and we buzz the town with Confederate Heroes Matter in a big battle flag. It was great. It was great, I was excited. You got drowning out them trying to talk. It was wonderful. And then a reporter comes up to me, sticks a microphone in my face and says, what do you think of your misspelled banner plane? And I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. And if you look really closely up here, our wonderful, wonderful banner plane pilot, who, by the way, lost his license after he flew too low, he misspelled heroes. He left the E out at the end. He spelled it like the sandwich, okay? So immediately, Twitter lights up, racist, redneck, white trash, Richmonders, misspelled banner plane. All over Twitter, all over Facebook, all over the news media. And I just about lost my mind, if you can imagine. I couldn't sleep. I was like, I cannot believe our big moment has been ruined by a misspelled word. And then I woke up the next morning, and Drudge had this picture right here on the lead story of the Drudge report. Now, he did say Confederates in Richmond misspelled banner plane, but it didn't matter. This was the lead picture on the Drudge report. My phone immediately started ringing off the hook. Everything I had was beeping and alerting all day long with people wanting to know, how do we do what you do? How did you get that done? How do you get that banner plane? I want a banner plane. And folks, money started pouring in for flags, everything you would want, positive and good. And folks, this is where I'm going to stop and point to Romans 8:28. All things work for good for those of us who are, and I honestly believe that, folks. If you will please, I beg of you, if anything you do in this fight, and there's so many things we need to do, put God first. Stop and ask yourself, what does God want me to do right here? Stay in the scriptures, stay in the body of believers, and see what he has in mind for you. And if you do the best you can to do that, I'm telling you, he'll take it, and he'll bless it, and he'll take a misspelled banner plane and turn it to his good and use it for our good all over. And by the way, one more quick story. There was a gentleman who called me 2 days later. He said, I'm 82 years old. I lived in this house on Monument Avenue all my life. It was my aunt's house. As a child, I watched the soldiers march down the street at the reunion. I have a picture of the flag I waved. When I saw that flag fly by, tears were rolling down my face. I didn't think anybody in Virginia or Richmond cared anymore. And folks, I'm here to tell you that what you do, much like when you take the gospel and you scatter it out, and you've heard about that, right? How God will take it and use it. You stand out with your flag, you have your flag flying in your yard, you step out and speak out, and people will be touched that you never know are touched. You don't know how many people call and write and send me emails, your flag, every day I go by and I salute it. We can do this, we can make a difference. That man ended up coming to the picnic and being a friend of ours for some time after that. Stick flags, we had a lot of fun with stick flags. I can't tell you every story, but the end of this story is, that's Sharpsburg. Those are Yankee Boy Scouts holding our flags at an event up there. It's a lot better story than all the times I go on. But you can take and make an event Confederate. By the way, that was when we dedicated the Georgia Monument up there, not too long ago. All right, this is, I only included this. This is an event just to sort of encourage people to get out into public events. And this event, the funny thing about it was, they used this picture for the AP picture. People were sending me copies of this in newspapers in California with the Abraham Lincoln Wanted poster. Everybody thought that was so horrible of us to have out there. And then I put this in. A lot of people like to say all we do is run around and stick flags in people's faces. I've heard that a few times. Here we are cleaning some graves in Hollywood Cemetery. I just like to give a little shout out. Now, in the middle of all this Black Lives Matter fiasco, we had some folks trying to paint the monuments down in Richmond. And so we started what we call monument guards. And it's kind of caught on, we had a little trouble after what Nikki Haley did. And, we get these sort of upticks in monument desecration. And then some other little things. I talk about that we have to find ways to make flagging fun. And so one thing we did is to go a little bit outside the box. We bought an old weather van, an old satellite van that used to ride around and do the weather. And we added a 10-foot pole to the top of the satellite dish thing that used to go up there. And now we can take this, that's called the Mobile Flagger Response Unit, also affectionately called the Cracker Tracker by a few people that I know. And it can go wherever you want to go, and you just park it, and up you got a 50-foot flag in the air with a 10x15 flag on it. Great for political events. We've got a governor and a legislature that needs to get this pretty soon. But it's wonderful. It's just a way of thinking and having fun outside the box. Another one in here, I don't have the picture of, but this also came from my friends in Georgia, is flashing the flag up on the side of a building. And we've done that a few times in Virginia. That's great fun. And I got that. I actually got the slide from some guys down here. All right, so I'm going to just tell you real quickly about, I was mentioning about your Confederate Memorial Park and this Confederate Memorial Park. One of my ancestors, I had 4 direct great-great-grandfathers. One of them, William Lewis Stone. I like to say his name because now I got to remember it tonight. He was 18 years old out of Mecklenburg County, Virginia. And he went to Point Lookout, was captured in the wilderness, Point Lookout, then Helmira. And so to me, Point Lookout is a very special place. And I remember the first time I went up there, and I think that's a picture of that visit. And I found for the first time what happened up there. In case you don't know, the very shortest description, SCV used to do a service on the state park there. States started redlining their speeches saying this is what you can and can't say. So those guys went and bought 5 acres right next door and put up Confederate Memorial Park. Georgia was very heavily involved in this because I know all the guys that were in it when I first started going up there were from Georgia. And if you've ever gone there, it's like Flagapalooza. It's like 39 flags flying in that place and a nice monument. And it just hit me. Why are we, the sons and daughters, with the blood in our veins of the greatest army ever to take the field of battle, why are we begging municipalities, oh, please let us have this service here. Please let us fly our flag. Please let us mark our ancestors' graves. Why are we begging states, federal government, for goodness sakes, for the right to do these things? And to me, that is not the responsibility of the state. It's not the responsibility of the county. It's not the responsibility of the federal government. It is the responsibility of you and I to make sure they are honored and remembered the way we want it done. And you know the only way we're going to do that? Private property with our own memorials and our own flags. And that's where our idea for the first interstate flag came from down there. And just to tell you a quick story, the very first one we put up is when my life changed overnight. When I went from being that soccer mom and that Sunday school teacher to being the white supremacist, crazy, racist lady putting up flags all over Virginia. And it really happened quick. And I'm telling you folks, these people out there that don't like us, they are serious about wanting anybody who stands up and speaks out to sit down and shut up. And they will come after you hard. And I will tell you right here and right now, if there's anybody in this room that doing something like standing on a corner with a flag will cost them their job, their livelihood, their ability to take care of their families, I say stay home and write letters and do what you can do. I'm not telling anybody to do what I do. Everybody has a place, just like in the body of Christ. But what I do want to say is it was pretty immediate for me. Troubles at my job, troubles with, I really can't even tell you everything that has happened since I started to do this. But one of the things I think that really drives them crazy is we have been able to present ourselves in a way that they really can't get anything on us. They really can't. I tell my folks all the time, and I can look around this room right now, and I can say that probably there's a handful of you all who might admit it privately that you really can't be a flagger. Because if you cannot stand on the street or in public with the flag of our ancestors, and you can't do that without swearing, cussing, that's probably the same thing, but I won't get technical, coming in any way under any influence of alcohol or any kind of substance like that, and you cannot stand on that corner and have somebody walk up to you, tell you to do something to you that I haven't figured out how you're supposed to do that to yourself yet, or say something about your mama, or say something that might be something that would normally upset you, and you can't just look them in the eye and say, God bless you, have a nice day. Because that is the only thing we're allowed to say to people when we're flagging. And there's some of you who may not be able to do it, and God bless you, because the last thing I need, and what the whole world wants to see, is Susan Lee reaching up and punching somebody right in the nose and the blood pouring out on national TV. That's what they're looking for, folks. Is it right? Is it fair? I've had people tell me, it's not fair, I shouldn't be able to do whatever I want to. I don't care what's fair or not. I'm in this for my ancestor, and I'm going to represent him the best way I can. I may live my life one way. I don't drink. I don't do some of that stuff that other people do. But I don't care if you do either, as long as you do it on your own time and not when we're out doing Confederate stuff. And that's the difference that I think we need to make for people, if we're going to really win this and get ahead. Because like I said, it's all connected. So by the way, I digress. We were putting our first flag up, and the news was hounding us, trying to find out where it was. Because everything had gone public so quick and so fast. By the way, now, nobody knows when our new flags are going up until after the fact. We learned a lesson. They all wanted to know where the flag was. The news crews are running up and down 95 the night before, trying to find the pole, because we're getting ready to put up the next day. We go to the state capitol. We pull out the flag we're going to put up on the Capitol steps. It was great. And we took a bunch of pictures, and we tweeted this picture right here. And I know some of you are like, oh my gosh, I really don't care about Twitter or any of that stuff you crazy young people do. And I agree to an extent. But I also know, if you look around the room and you look at our organizations, we tend to be a little older. And we're a little behind on the technology. Our enemies are in the middle of the technology. They own it. We have to do things like this picture here, which immediately went viral on every news station, immediately went viral on social media, and people want to click it because it looks cool. It looks like people are having a good time. And they start clicking it, and then you can tell your story. And we can get the word out. I take some criticism, I really do. People say, oh, you're just all over Facebook, you just want your picture. First of all, trust me, if I had this all to do 8 years ago, you wouldn't know my name or anything. You'd hardly ever know my face at this point from what I've been through. But this is the kind of thing that gets people attention, and it's what we need to do more of. We've kind of been hiding for a lot of years. So anyway, this picture goes viral. We take the picture before we leave, because we always do. We sang Dixie on the Capitol steps, and that's when the state cops or the Capitol Police came running, and you need a permit and all this and all this. And so we packed up and we went home. And then about 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail, and it says, Dear Virginia flaggers, you may never gather on the steps on the Capitol with more than 4 people unless you have a permit, blah, blah, blah. Signed the governor. And I learned something very early on in this fight that I've used ever since, and that is, it is much, much, much easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Just do it. Just do it and get the picture, folks. I'm going to talk on Lee and Jackson because that's what we're here for, and this is probably the best segue to it. Folks, we are here to honor today two men who, in my opinion, next to my daddy and Billy Graham, are probably two of the most godly men ever to walk the face of the earth. Am I not right?
Yep.
Have any of y'all really studied about Lee and Jackson? Why do they hate Robert E. Lee? Because it is a reflection of everything godly that they are not. They have to call him a racist because they look at him and they see reflected on their ungodly lives a man who lived and walked with God. And we look at them, and they were two of the most godly men. We can all agree on that, I hope. But then look at their lives in war. Going away from their Christian life, their father, their husband. Look at them in war. And look at how they fought. And it wasn't mamby-pamby, was it? It wasn't, as I might have heard in early life, panty-waisted or anything like that. These men fought. Jackson had the black flag. Kill them all, kill them all. And what I think we need to remember is, and this is how I see it, maybe some of y'all disagree. By the way, if you disagree with anything, I say, God bless you. We all can do different things, different ways. This is just what I see. I see that 150 years of being raised as Southerners. And that for me, my mother taught me to be a lady. She lived it. My father lived the example of a Southern gentleman. And we've kind of been too nice. That's the best way I can put it. They know it. They know that we are all good, godly people. Have you ever seen that happen to our detriment in the past? And it's happening now. They know that we're good people, and they use it to our advantage to walk over top of us. And folks, I'm here to tell you that we can be like Lee and Jackson. We can be godly. We can be Christians. We can represent our families and our God, and we can still say absolutely no more. That's it. And we can say, no, you're not tearing this monument down. And we can stand and fight and still represent our ancestors. All right, so all this grief we were supposed to have, hundreds of protesters. They had 7 cop cars there for the first flag we raised up. Nobody showed up but 300 supporters, and our first flag was raised, and not a single snowflake showed up. And one thing we learned from that, by the way, if you want to avoid the lefties, the commies, the pinkos, whatever you want to call them these days, just have your event early in the morning. They don't get up. They're up all night on their mama's basement in their computer, and they're not there. So from that, when I left that, by the way, I left that event, and I was like, thank you, Lord. This was one of the top days of my life. It was so beautiful going up. And now I'm done and finished, and I can go back to my life, and this is all over. And as I'm walking out, a guy says, I have land on 95 in Fredericksburg. Would you be interested in putting up another flag? And I'm like, okay. So we go up to, by the way, we kept this one quiet. We go up to Lee Jackson Day in Lexington the following year, and we brought out the flag that we all knew was going up. Nobody else was. And we unfurled it in front of the Jackson statue at VMI. VMI, by the way, still very friendly to us, invited us to campus this year for a tour. Washington and Lee will not allow you on the campus in a period attire. You can't be in a hoop skirt and walk on Washington and Lee campus. You can carry a flag at VMI, just to tell you the difference there. So, real quickly, we pulled this out. You can see the cadets back here. We started singing Dixie because we do everywhere we go. We sang Dixie, the cadets started singing with us. First thing you know, these windows open up, and cadets are leaning out singing Dixie with us. The final, the end of everything, one of those windows over there, a cadet leaned down the window, unfurled a battle flag right there. I don't know how he was hiding it or how he got it in there. But that, folks, is another thing. And by the way, the next day on Facebook, I got messages from cadets. How do we join you people? What were you doing there? How do we start an SCV camp? One of them asked me, in VMI. We've got to get the battle flag back out in public, folks. It is a rallying point. It is a place where people flock to and want to be under. It's up to us to get it out there. By the way, that flag in May of 2013 was our second flag raised. It's a great story. It's by far our most acid-causing flag. It really, really gets some. And I got to tell you, there's not just the one main reason we fly our flags is they are first and foremost memorials to our Confederate ancestors. However, there is another thing to it. Secondly, they let the entire world, anybody that passes it, know, and y'all mentioned it earlier, they might have one coming up here, and that this was the point too, 24/7, that there are people in that area who are not ashamed of where their ancestors came from and aren't afraid to keep flying that flag. And number 3, folks, yes, we absolutely fly them, to fly it in the face of the people who want it taken down and want us gone away. And in this stretch, which, by the way, just was said was the most busiest stretch of 95, there are people, remember the lady who made the news, she wanted to put up a Black Lives Matter flag right across the street. It was national news. She raised $8,500 and packed up and went back to New Jersey. They never put that Black Lives Matter flag up. The best story of this is, this poll right here, we do everything on a shoestring budget. We try to find used polls. We try to find anything we can. We're making our own now. And this poll came from Fort Lee. And we found out that in 1972, the federal government paid like $12,500 for this poll. You imagine what that is today. So for $1,000, you now have flying 1 hour south of Washington, D.C. on the busiest stretch of 95, a 20 by 30 battle flag on a 90-foot pole paid for and bought by the federal government. This brings me to the final reason that we fly our battle flags. They are absolutely, positively, 100% a visible and readily recognizable resistance to federal overreaching tyrannical government. And if we ever, especially in Virginia, needed that anymore, it's right now. And folks, that's another reason we fly them. Real quickly, I'm just going to show you. We put these ads when they took the flags out of the graves in Washington Lee. Remember that? They took him out of his grave. We put these in the paper. If that just went in the paper, it would have been good enough. You can imagine those liberals up in Lexington opening up their Sunday paper, and this is the first thing they see, and the Frappuccino goes, you know, so it would have been good enough at that $300 well spent, but from that, we got a bunch of calls. Our first one went on what's called Jackson Farm. I'm going to stop and tell you, I would put a flag on top of Walmart if somebody would let me. I do not care about historical accuracy. However, when it happens, it's a wonderful thing. This flag actually went on the land that Jackson owned before the war, and he sold it during the war. Second one up there went on 81 in a place called Billboard Hill. That was our second call from that ad. This is by far our most beautiful, I would say. And the third one goes to show that it doesn't always have to be a giant flag to make a difference. The third one we put in Lexington is only a 30-foot pole with a little 8 by 10 flag, small compared to many we do, but it's right by the visitor center. Everybody that parks in the visitor center has to see it, and it's about a block from City Council. So I usually stop right here to tell you, some people ask me, how do you get up and continue to do what you do? What makes it possible? Every morning we get up, there's a street change, a school change. You're fighting this, you're fighting that, every time you turn around. And folks, I got to tell you, there's 2 reasons that I continue to do what I do. Number 1, when I think about quitting, and really, folks, when we think about quitting what we're doing, what are we really looking at that really causes us grief? And by the way, this goes with our Christian faith, our fight for life, our fight for our guns, anything like that. But most importantly with our Confederate right now, I think, what's the worst thing that can happen to you? And I think it's things like this. Are any of y'all the crazy Confederate at Thanksgiving dinner? Come on, raise your hand. You know what I'm talking about. It'll be like, do not get Susan started on the monuments. Pass the potatoes, please. Or maybe you're like me. I've been in Sunday school before, and I was on the news the night before, and I come into the room and everybody kind of parts ways on the front row, and I'm sitting there. Or maybe at the water cooler at work, you walk up and everybody starts whispering and walking away. Or maybe you're called names because of your bumper sticker or your flag. That's probably the worst we're going to have to deal with. Maybe today you could lose your job. That's a real possibility. I'll throw that in there too. It absolutely is, and I don't want that to happen to anybody. But that's the worst. That's the worst. And when I think about that, and I think about William Lewis Stone, I mentioned, 18 years old. By 19, he's in a Yankee prison camp at Point Lookout, Maryland. He has food that's rancid. He does not have a blanket in the winter. He's sweltering in the summer with rotten food and no water to drink right by the ocean. I think about 1 hour in his life and what I have to deal with at the supper table or work or maybe losing my job. And what is that in comparison, folks? It is nothing. It is nothing compared to what our ancestors did. When I think about that, I think I should be doing more than I'm doing right now. Amen. Number 2, I'm here to tell you, and if you don't know this, you better learn it tonight before you leave here, because Jesus could come before we get home. I serve an absolute, living, breathing God who is on his throne right now today. Amen. And he is in charge of all of this, folks. He is in charge of everything that's happening. I've had people in Virginia calling me, what are we going to do, Susan? What are we going to do? Wringing their hands, upset. And believe me, I'm angry too. I'm mad. But I tell them, look, just remember, God's in control. We are his people, folks. If you are a Christian, if you are a believer, you are his child. And I believe he knows our hearts, and he knows our heritage, and he is going to, eventually, this is going to all be taken care of because he is in control. We cannot forget that, folks, no matter how bleak it looks. And that's why I'm here to tell you to bring you a message of hope. We'll go real quick through Danville, Virginia, where we eventually put 16 flags up in little bitty, teeny tiny Danville, Virginia, because they took one flag off of the last capital of the Confederacy. And I'm really going to fly through those, but it's just pictures of all of the flags in Danville, Virginia. We had to search to find an interstate in Danville, Virginia. It's so small. Good stories, though. Great stories out there. I'll tell you one before I close. I mentioned a lot of things the flags do. Here's the last thing the flags do. There was a couple that wanted to move to Danville, Virginia from New Jersey. Okay, they were riding around with the realtor to see Danville, Virginia. There's a realtor here, husband here, wife in the back. They passed one battle flag, a big, huge battle flag on the side of the road. The lady's a little shocked, and she leans up and whispers something to her husband. He looks over at the real estate agent and said, "What in the world is going on with that big Confederate flag?" He said, "Oh, last capital, there's been some trouble. Don't worry about it. No big deal." She said, "Okay." They go along. They pass the second big flag. She leans up, whispers something to the husband. Husband leans over to the real estate agent and says, "What in the world? Another big Confederate flag in this town?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, we're the last capital of Confederacy. There was some trouble. It's okay." So they get to the third battle flag, and the wife leans up, whispers something to her husband. He turns and looks at the agent and says, "You can turn this car around. We will not be moving to Danville, Virginia." So I'm here to tell you that along with being a memorial to our soldiers, a sign of resistance to tyranny, they are also very effectively a Yankee deterrent for you. If you and folks, if we ever needed a deterrent from those godless liberal Yankees, and that's where I just offended any of you who are sitting here, it is right now today in the southern part of America, as far as I'm concerned. So, and I'm here to tell you that this is temporary, folks. I really, truly believe this. If you look through history, every sort of downtrodden, subjugated people, this is all part of history and how we come back from it. I mentioned it here. But it may take years or decades, but I absolutely believe we're going to take our land back. You know, just think about it for a minute. Things are really, really bad for us right now. Are they not the worst that we've ever seen? My grandfather, I cannot imagine what he'd think if he was alive today. Even my daddy, who passed away. But really, think about it. It's been 150 years they have been trying to get us to go away and disappear, and where are we? I'm sitting in a room with 75 people right now. By the way, is it Albany or Albany?
Albany.
Everybody said, go down there, don't say Albany, it's Albany. So I say Albany, and everybody else is saying Albany.
Albany.
Okay. Okay, now I got it.
Albany.
I see now. Okay, so anyway, 75 people in this room. We're not gone anywhere, people. As long as there is one person left to tell the truth. Just one person to write poetry that people will read. Just one people to write articles like Mr. King, who I've been reading for years. One person to tell the truth, whether it's about our Christian faith or our politics or our heritage, folks. And they have not succeeded in 150 years. What in the world makes you think they're going to succeed with the few years that they've had lately? They're not. You mentioned the number of monuments that have taken down. I looked at it in 2017. These liberals were talking about the year the Confederacy died, right? Well, I looked at it. If you look at all the monuments that have come down, even the last when they came down Dallas and these big liberal cities, by the way, that's the only place they're coming down, folks. In liberally controlled cities that were democratically controlled will never have anything. But just look at that. Even the worst case scenario and all of this that's happened. And we added them all up. We asked all our sister states to send us the documentation. What's your best guess how many monuments you have? Do you know even today, standing here, it is less than 2% of the monuments across the South that have come down. You'd think from looking at the news that they all went boom and they're down and gone. But it's not. Because everywhere locally, some people ask me, what are y'all going to do in Virginia? Well, I can almost guarantee you by Monday, our monument law will be gone. Our law protecting our monuments will be gone. So now what do? It's very easy. Simple. Might not be easy, but it's a simple plan. You fight in every locality. You go on the counter. You go on the ahead of them. Get your monument protected them. And then what do you do when they get taken down in those democratically controlled cities that you have no control over? you put it right back up, right down the street with a bigger flag or a flag or something that they've never had. It's not rocket science, folks. We can still win this. And they have not beaten us. 150 years later, I'm still standing here talking to you in front of this big flag in this room. So, by the way, the next one we put up, we went back to Prince George on 95. This is our best visual. You can see it for miles on both ways. We call this a Wade Hampton because Wade Hampton did his beefsteak raid right there. Charlottesville, Virginia, you all know what we've been dealing with up there. Craziest bunch of liberals. It's like little Berkeley in Virginia there, and having to deal. I can't even really talk about it without having to wash my mouth out with soap. This is, by the way, this is the last flag we put up in Little Bitty Danville, Virginia, our biggest one yet, a 128-footer with a 30 by 50 flag. It's just beautiful. I just like looking at that picture. And going back to Lee Jackson Day up in Lexington, if you all remember, a couple of years ago, the snowflakes up there tried to take over Lee Jackson Day, and they wanted to have Martin Luther King Day on Saturday. So we decided that we were not going to let them push us around, and we went up, and right after I called it their sachet down the street for their little rainbow parade they had. After they finished, because again, I don't even want to be on the sidewalk with those folks. Who knows what you'll catch or what might happen. So we come in after them and walked silently down the sidewalk in our own parade. The news was on, what are y'all going to do? What are y'all going to do? It was beautiful. So folks, I just show this to say they had decided that there was going to be nothing Confederate in Lexington that day. We made it Confederate, and it was the most beautiful thing. God just took it and used it and made it perfect. And that's what we need to do, folks. I come to the end here just to show you a few. Oh, I'm going backwards. There we go. This is one out on Chesapeake, Virginia. The cool thing about this is you have to pay like a $5 toll for the privilege of seeing our flag right there. That's everybody going out to the Outer Banks has to see it. And then one of the things we've done recently, if you heard about this guy up in Charlottesville, his name is Wes Bellamy. And I almost wanted to spit, except my mother's voice is in my ear saying don't spit. Wes Bellamy is a very, very nasty man who he was discovered having done a whole lot of tweets about white people and very nasty things about women and things like that. And he was vice mayor that really started that monument coming down. And when I first bought this billboard, we had to wait like 6 months to get it. My first thought was, let's do some Wes Bellamy tweets and really embarrass him, do some of his nasty tweets or something. And by the time it came around, God kind of spoke to me and said, you know what? Go the completely opposite direction. Go the opposite direction. They go low, you go high. Take Robert E. Lee and put a quote up there that involves God. And I'm telling you, that's like heaping hot coals on these people's head. They went nuts from this. Anything spiritual to these people, and I'm telling you folks, it's because they are ungodly. And they're looking at us, and they see everything that they know they're supposed to be. And they want us gone so they don't have to see that. So this is something I'd like to do more in Virginia. I'd like anywhere there's a monument, have somebody locally there do it. And this is how we answered in Charlottesville, Virginia. We are in the middle of 2 court cases, which are both coming up next 2 weeks. This is one of them in Charlottesville, Virginia. They're trying to get this one down, and they're trying to get our very first flag we ever put down. I don't have time to go into all the details, but pray for us about that because it's coming up soon. I just want to leave you, and I'm sorry, I really hope I didn't talk too fast. I was trying to get a lot of information in a little bit of time. I want to leave you with one of the things that I got from a friend in Alabama who has since passed away. And it's really the 12 reasons that you should fly a Confederate battle flag. And whether that means on your car or at your house, whatever the case may be, I'd like if you listen to these, the top 12 reasons to fly the Confederate battle flag. Number 12, it is one of the oldest Christian symbols on earth, and silently but eloquently lets the world know that a Christian family resides at the residence where it's flown. Number 11, it is a universal symbol of resistance to tyranny, having been sighted flying in nearly every modern-day conflict where people were or are fighting an oppressive and despotic governance. Number 10, it lets the world know that you know where you came from and are proud of your ancestors' efforts to preserve their liberty and God-given freedom. Number 9, it is a sign of unity that is instantly understood by all who have Southern blood, and if enough folks would begin flying it, it would almost overnight put an end to the liberal clamor to have it and all Confederate symbols removed from public view. Number 8, it is a constant and powerful reminder that we have not forgotten what the Yankees did to our ancestors and to our civilization and are still doing, and that we do not intend to forget nor forgive until they cease meddling in our sovereign affairs. Number 7, it honors the thousands of Southern men and boys whose blood was spilled, who lost their lives, homes, and everything they had trying to keep the free, constitutional representative republic that was bequeathed us by the founders, a republic we have not had since Lee laid down his sword. Number 6, it is a reminder that liberty is a God-given right, not a commodity to be controlled by greedy politicians, left-wing liberal teachers, and power-crazed activist judges. And also a reminder that liberty is worth fighting for. Number 5, the sight of it subtly stirs the embers of pride which still glows ever so faintly in every real Southerner's heart, and which now more than ever needs to be rekindled into a bright and blazing fire. Number 4, it lets those who would oppress us and steal our liberty know that they have not yet succeeded, and will have not succeeded until they have killed every last one of us and destroyed every last battle flag. Number 3, flying the battle flag reinforces the meaning of the First Amendment to the Constitution, which is supposed to guarantee that no despot could interfere with our God-given right to express yourself. Number 2, it symbolizes the unique Southern states where we, as a separate people with a common background, have preserved and continue to preserve our honorable cultural heritage. In fact, the design is both Christian and Celtic. And finally, the number 1 top reason you should fly a Confederate battle flag. It is brilliantly beautiful. If not the most, perhaps the most beautiful flag ever to be flown. Folks, I just want to leave you with this word. Keep the faith. For goodness sakes, don't give up. We're nowhere near losing it, and it's the very least we can do for our ancestors who did so much for us. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and God save the South.
Started this Virginia Flaggers group and has accomplished everything you saw tonight. A real true daughter of the South, a real Southern belle, Susan Lee, head of the Virginia Flaggers. The things that she told you about the Confederate flag, and the 4 big things. The Confederate flag represents the same principles that the original U.S. Betsy Ross flag represented. Limited constitutional federal government, states' rights, resistance to tyranny, and Christian values and principles. And Frank Connor, when he wrote the book The South Under Siege, 1830 to 2000, predicted what's happening today. He says that the future of America really depends on the South. You see, we're the most Christian conservative part of the nation, and they know that they've got to break us, and once they break us, the rest of America will fall in line like sheep behind socialism and secular humanism. Secular humanism, the idea that there is no God, that man, science, and government can solve all problems. And that's what they want to do, a total socialist government, destruction of Christianity, and like I said, the movement toward a one-world government where all nations lose their sovereignty and so forth, is where they're trying to take us and so forth. But in America, I really believe what Frank Connor said when he wrote that book, you know, we're the tough nut to crack. We're the most Christian conservative part of the nation, and the future of America depends to a large extent on us. But right now, I'm going to ask our band to play the other song that was so popular in the South, Bonnie Blue Flag, and then after that, we'll have Amazing Grace, and then following that and all, I'll ask Pastor Bobby Joe Brown to come back up and give the benediction for us tonight. So right now, the song Bonnie Blue Flag.